In this video, we would be talking about a ship, which began a new era in traveling by ocean. This ship had a successful career, but an unfortunate end. So, without wasting any more time, let's get started with today's video titled, Sinking of the Lusitania. Starting off with the introduction, the RMS Lusitania was an ocean liner owned and operated by the Cunard line, launched in 1906. The ship set sail on its maiden voyage on the 7th of September 1907. It was the safest and fastest ship when launched. It earned the Blue Riband for making the fastest crossing across the Atlantic in 1908. The ship had a weight of 31,550 tons. The ship was 787 feet long and 87 feet wide, making it the biggest ship of the time. The ship measured 144 feet from keel to the funnel top. The ship had 9 decks for passengers. Lusitania was designed by Leonard Pescott and built by John Brown and Company. The ship could accommodate 550 to first-class passengers, 460 second-class passengers, and 1,186 third-class passengers. A total of 850 crew members worked on board. The ship was propelled by 4 triple-blade propellers. Quadruple-blade propellers were installed in 1909. The ship was powered by 25 fire tube boilers and 4 direct acting Parsons steam turbines producing 76,000 horsepower. The hull was divided into 13 watertight compartments, connected by 35 hydraulically operated watertight doors. Any 2 of them could be flooded without risk of sinking. The interiors of the Lusitania was designed by James Miller, a Scottish architect. With the beginning of the First World War, most of the commercial services were restricted. The Lusitania was requisitioned by the British Admiralty to serve as an armed merchant cruiser. The ship's name was put up on the official list of British AMCs. Soon, the Admiralty cancelled its decision to use Lusitania as an AMC due to it being large in size. Large ships consume huge amount of coal, which would have been a load on the Admiralty's fuel reserves. Later, the Lusitania was listed as an auxiliary cruiser. A naval blockade of Germany was put by the British in August 1914. The British declared North Sea as a war zone in November 1914, and also that all ships entering this zone should do it at their own risk. By 1915, a new threat in the form of U-boats began to materialize. The sea around the British Isles was declared a war zone by Germany in February 1915, and any ship in this area would be sunk without any warning. This unrestricted submarine warfare became a new threat for all the Allied ships. For the voyage of Lusitania, the Admiralty issued its special orders for avoiding submarines. It was said to fly no any flags in the war zone. Several warnings were sent to the ship's captain to help him decide how to protect his ship. The funnels were painted gray to make the ship less visible. The Lusitania departed Pier 54 in New York on the 1st of May 1915, under the command of Captain William Turner. The ship was on her return trip to Liverpool with 1959 people on board, out of which there were 159 Americans. The ship began sailing at noon. The ship's departure was delayed by 2 hours due to a shift of 41 passengers from recently requisitioned Cameronia. Soon, 3 German-speaking men were found in the pantry, who were questioned by Detective Willem Pierpoint of Liverpool Police. A few days before Lusitania's departure, U-boat U-20, under the command of Captain Walter Schwieger, left Borkum on the 30th of April, heading northwest in North Sea. Its movements was being traced by wireless intercepts and radio direction findings. On 2nd May, the U-20 reached Peterhead. The U-20 proceeded around the north of Scotland and Ireland, and then along the western and southern coasts of Ireland, to enter the Irish Sea from south. Their destination and arrival time were known to Room 40 in the Admiralty. Only the highest officers saw the information and passed it if needed. On the 27th of March, Room 40 cracked a message which stated that the Germans had broken the code used by British to communicate to their ships. Cruisers escorting commercial ships were warned not to use that code. However, Queenstown wasn't alerted about this and it continued to use the same code. On the 5th of May, the U-20 stopped a merchant schooner, Earl of Latham, off the head of Kinsale. Then its crew was said to leave and the schooner was sunk the same day. The Admiralty warned all the ships about U-boat activity off the south coast of Ireland. On 6th May, U-20 sank the SS Candidate. The SS Ko Romano merely missed the torpedo fired from the U-20 on the 6th of May. It failed to sink the liner Arabic as it was at a high speed but sank the cargo ship Centurion. Captain Turner was warned twice on the evening of the 6th of May. On the 7th of May, at about 11 a.m., all the ships were warned about the activity of U-boats in south of Irish Channel. The news of sinkings reached Liverpool. So, Captain Turner adjusted ship's course to northeast, thinking that the subs would be in the open sea, and being near to land would be safer, since U-20 was low on fuel and had limited torpedoes left. Schwieger decided to return home on the 7th of May. The U-20 submerged at 11 a.m. and was passed by a ship at high speed. It was the cruiser Juno returning to Queenstown, following a zigzag course, to prevent being targeted by any U-boat. By 5 a.m. in the morning of the 7th of May, Lusitania was at a point 120 nautical miles west-southwest of Fastnet Rock, where it met the boarding vessel Patridge. Soon, extra lookouts were posted. As the ship approached Ireland, Captain Turner ordered speed to be reduced to 18 and then to 15 knots. The fog began clearing by 10 a.m. and by noon, it was replaced by sunshine. This led to the speed being increased to 18 knots. The U-20 once again surfaced at 12:45 as visibility got better. At around 1:20, the Lusitania was spotted, which was mistaken to be several ships due to the funnels and masts. Soon, it was identified that the ship was the Lusitania and the U-20 sailed towards it. Lusitania turned away when the U-boat was at a distance of 2 nautical miles. Schwieger feared that his target was lost, but soon the ship turned again, this time on a course on which attacking was easier. At 10 p.m., the target was 700 meters away, and Schwieger ordered a torpedo to be fired, set to run at a depth of 3 meters. Within 6 minutes, the forecastle began submerging. Leslie Morton, the lookout, yelled on the megaphone, "Torpedoes coming on the starboard side," seeing thin lines of foam. The torpedo hit the ship under the bridge, damaging the steel plating and knocking lifeboat number 5 off its davits. A second explosion sent water, coal, dust, and debris above the deck. At 12 p.m., the captain ordered Quartermaster Johnson to steer hard a starboard towards the Irish coast. Turner ordered the engines to be reversed, but nothing could be done. Steam pressure fell from 195 psi to 50 psi and falling afterwards. Soon, distress calls were sent, which was received by a local coastal station. At 14 p.m., the electricity failed and the people got trapped inside the lifts. The rudder couldn't be operated due to the failure of power, which meant that the ship couldn't be steered to beach or tow control the list. A minute after the power failure, the captain ordered to abandon the ship. Water flooded the starboard compartments, causing a 15-degree list to starboard. The severe listing caused troubles in launching lifeboats. 10 minutes after the torpedo struck, the ship slowed enough to start pulling boats in the water, and the boats at the starboard side swung out too far to board safely, while on the port side, lowering them was a problem. The boats on the port side dragged while lowering, and got damaged by the rivets. Most of the boats overturned while loading or lowering, throwing passengers into the sea. It was claimed that due to the negligence of some officers, some boats crashed down onto the deck, crushing the passengers. Some untrained crew members lost their grip on ropes while lowering the boats, causing the passengers to fall into the sea, while some people jumped in the sea due to panic. Though the ship had 48 boats, only 6 were lowered successfully, all from starboard side. Lifeboat 1 overturned while lowering, causing its occupants to fall, but managed to right itself and was later filled with people. Lifeboats 9 and 11 got down with fewer people, but were later filled with people. Lifeboats 13 and 15 also reached few water, overloaded with 150 people. At last, Lifeboat 21 was lowered with 52 people and it safely moved away from the ship. 2 boats from the port side also managed to make their way. Lifeboat 14 was lowered and launched safely, but it sank in the water due to misplacement of the boat plug. There was panic and disorder on the decks. Schwieger observed the destruction and panic from the periscope. By 25 p.m., he dropped the periscope and headed out for sea. Captain Turner was near the bridge taking the ship's logbook and charts when a sudden wave of water threw him overboard and the forward superstructure submerged. He managed to find a chair floating to save himself. Later, he was pulled unconscious from the water. The bow slammed on the seafloor about 100 meters below at a shallow angle. Some of the boilers later exploded. Soon, the stern rose, exposing the propellers, and then the ship submerged completely. In the logbook, the last entry was just 2 minutes before the torpedo attack. Turner was able to remember the ship's speed and bearing at the time of sinking. It proved helpful in locating the wreck. The ship was found 2 nautical miles away from the point where it was torpedoed. Lusitania sank in only 18 minutes, almost 11.5 nautical miles, off the old head of Kinsale, though it was near the coast. It took 2 hours for the help to arrive. A total of 764 people were rescued and brought to Queenstown. Almost 1,195 people died that day. A few days later, the Cunard line began offering cash prizes to the local fishermen and sea merchants for helping recover the bodies floating all through the Irish Sea. Only 289 bodies were recovered, out of which 65 remained unidentified, and the remaining 885 bodies were never recovered. Germany was condemned by the international media. After the sinking of the Lusitania, German shops were destroyed in British cities. Germany was struck off the list of civilized nations. The Kaiser was declared a barbarian, a murderer. This was also a turning point in the war for Germany. This incident was a big reason which led the USA to join the war. Some say that the Lusitania was deliberately left exposed to U-boats to make the US join the war. Germany justified their act by stating that the ship was allegedly carrying arms and ammunition, though it was criticized by many. On the 8th of May, the local county coroner, John Hogan, opened an inquiry in Kinsale for the death of 2 males and 3 females. Most of the survivors were taken to Kinsale as it was nearest. On the 10th of May, the captain gave evidences where he told that only a single torpedo struck between 3rd and 4th funnels. He accepted that he received warnings about the submarines, and that he followed the orders issued to him. The coroner came to a conclusion that the victim had drowned after an attack on an unarmed vessel, and the results were given to the press. The Board of Trade investigation was held under the leadership of Lord Mersey from the 15th of June to the 18th of June at Westminster Central Hotel. Further investigation was held at Westminster Palace Hotel on the 1st of July and Caxton Hotel on the 17th of July. The Lord Mersey was experienced in commercial cases. He handled numerous maritime cases, including the Titanic inquiry. He was assisted by Admiral Sir Frederick Inglefield, Le Commodore Hearn, and 2 Navy Captains J. Spedding and D. Davies. A total of 36 witnesses of the tragedy were called. After all the hearings and investigations, the final conclusion was made in the favor of Britain. Captain Turner, the Royal Navy, and the Cunard line were declared non-guilty, and the German government was held responsible for the loss. After this case was closed, Lord Mersey took his fees and resigned. He said, "The Lusitania case was a damned, dirty business." The full report was never made public. It was believed that a copy of the report lied among Mersey's private papers, which is still a mystery till date. In the U.S., the inquiry was led by Judge Julius Mayer, who previously led the Titanic inquiry. The case was to proceed without a jury. Both the sides agreed that no questions would be raised regarding the ammunitions. 33 witnesses gave statements in England. To Commissioner R.V. Wynne, evidences produced in the Mersey inquiry were considered. During the investigation, Captain Turner firmly argued as to why a zigzag course would have not helped that day. Also, it was claimed that portholes across the vessel were open, making the ship sink faster. It was confirmed that such a porthole below the waterline would have let in a lot of water. Also, the number of torpedoes fired and the place where they hit were argued. It was verified by experts that under any circumstance, the cargo on board the ship wasn't viable to explosion. The final judgment was made on the 23rd of August 1918, once again in Britain's favor. Mayer concluded that the cause of the sinking was the act of Germany and that 2 torpedoes were fired. He further concluded that the captain took proper measures during the sinking. The claims for compensations further were made to Germany's government, which finally paid $2.5 million in 1925. The sinking of the Lusitania was an event that caused a huge loss of life. It raised many questions on the Admiralty, Cunard, and Captain Turner. It was one of the reasons which led the USA in joining the war. As per me, this incident was somehow planned by the British to draw the attention of USA. This event proved unfortunate for Germany and the Central Powers. The wreck of the Lusitania lies off the old head of Kinsale in a very bad condition. The superstructure of the ship is in an unrecognizable condition. It is now the final resting place for all the passengers who died on the ship.